It's rare these days to find a game that really truly surprises you, and Subnautica is one of those games that absolutely blew me away. It takes the existing surviving crafting genre and expands upon it in a new and interesting way that I really haven't seen before. Starting off, Subnautica is a game about you crash landing. You basically are in a ship that crash lands after an incident on a planet in the middle of an ocean. And you have to somehow find a way to survive and live by getting things like food, water, and the resources that you need to craft something. All you have is a basic life pod and barely anything left. You start off barely able to swim. You can simply swim areas, you can go down for a couple of seconds before you need air to go up to the surface. But as the game progresses on, you get new ways to survive underwater for longer, you get sea glides that you can use to cruise around, you get vehicles that you can use to cruise around in the water, you even get a mobile submarine that you get to drive around that can deploy a little walker suit to go and mine things, and you even get to build your own base. It's one of the coolest progression systems I've ever seen in a survival game before. It is so awesome. And this game does such a great job at exploration. It incentivizes you to go places, look for things, find things. Where are the new interesting creatures? Where might you find these resources? What's down in this crazy area? Oh my, this place is really dark. Is there scary monsters there? Oh hey, there's this crashed object or some abandoned base. What are these things? It's just such a cool game that really makes you wonder, what is this? What's that? I want to go see that. And along the way as you progress, you'll find new things that give you hints and clues as to what happened in the story. How did you find yourself here? What is the purpose of this? What are these things? How are they all connected? What is this planet and how does it work? And the base building part of this game is so cool. You get to do really interesting things with it, like build a moon pool that you can drive your little cruising vehicle into and dock at. You can craft at it. You can plant things to grow crops that you no longer have to go and run around and harvest things. And that's the interesting thing about the progression. Everything just builds and builds and builds, and you get new, more interesting ways that replace existing ways that you did things. It really feels like you're achieving something in this game. And then you have the soundtrack of Subnautica, which is amazing. I've been playing a couple tracks in the background during this review, and they are so good. And then there's the graphics, which is also amazing. When you combine that with the sounds of the world, and everything just comes together to create this amazingly awesome package. It's just so immersive. Everything from the gameplay, the sound, the graphics, everything that comes together to create this amazingly immersive package. You really feel like you're there. Now, of course, there are a couple negatives to Subnautica. First off, I think the mining and the progression in this game can sometimes stall a little bit, especially in the early game and the late game. In the early game, you don't have any of the cool materials, you don't have a really fast way to get around, and as a result, it can feel like a bit of a drag trying to find some of the resources that you need. You just kind of gotta search aimlessly, trying to find it. And in the early game, you don't have the mech suit with the drill arm to get the large deposits. You can only find the single ones that are around the place. So you kind of just got to search around. Of course, there are some areas that favor certain resources than others, so you can certainly look in those spots and find a lot more of it, but it can still feel a bit like a drag. The research can also feel like a drag because you basically have this scanner tool that you can scan objects that you find around the world and then get the blueprint to create it yourself. However, these are spread out randomly across the world, and so you kind of just got to search around, and sometimes it can feel like a bit of a drag when you need that one specific part and you can't find it. It's not a big deal most of the time, but there's some points of the game where you just need a specific item to actually progress, and you just can't find it. And then you have the performance, which kind of drops sometimes. For the most part, it's really, really solid, and the game runs smooth as butter. But then there's a couple parts where the game just kind of drags down, especially like when you're planting certain parts in your base. It's just, there's something with that, and it doesn't work right. And then finally, the last thing I dislike about this game is that the kind of fetchy nature of the late game. Basically, there's certain items you have to craft or create or find to progress in the game, and as a result, it can feel like a bit like a drag because you just got to search around for these one specific material that you maybe never saw before or maybe you never scanned, and they're all just kind of spread out across the areas. You got to go all over the place trying to find them, and this happens for multiple different steps towards the end of the game. Overall, though, Subnautica is one of the most fun games I've ever played. I got 40 hours to this game, and I usually don't play most games over 10 hours, but I really, really enjoyed this game. And I think most people will probably like it if they are into the more survival or crafty or exploration side. There's really anything for either of those kind of three people. It's just such an immersive game that really makes you feel like you're lost in the ocean trying to survive. So Subnautica gets a 9 out of 10. One of the best games I've ever played in a long time. I really enjoyed it. I think most people probably wouldn't. I would highly recommend picking this game up.